Hey, everybody, it's time for another episode of Paw and Order Las Vegas, the animal welfare podcast, where we hope to educate and empower you to take action. We have an amazing guest in here today. We've, of course, got Gina Greisen, Nevada Voters for Animals, Melanie Shane, Kiss My Paws Rescue, and Detective Robert Sigal, who is on the Felony Animal Cruelty Unit, and we will get to him in just a second. But I'm Bryce Henderson with No Kill Las Vegas. And before we get to Detective Sigal, do we have some updates? There was a lot going on just today in animal news. Melanie?
So the city of Henderson they're going to spend $7 million to upgrade their shelter. I don't know if there are any updates that anybody has.
I know they're going to add shelter space, so that's good.
That would be nice. Mm-hmm. So I know it's definitely needed. Reba's killer pled guilty, and sentencing will be on September 10th.
Cool.
And that's all really the news that I have.
Those are two big stories, though, just in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Anything, Gina?
Well, I did some records requests, but I haven't really had time to go through them. But I did, I believe I have a name on the lady that tied out the dog in front of Nevada SPCA. And
really?
I'm still not clear on the Canella ribbit. I'm still going through those records. It's been a busy day. Do you know anything about it? Have you guys gotten that case by chance? The 3 dogs that were killed, kind of adopted by the same family, or?
That is not one I'm directly aware of.
Okay.
I can try to get some information and get back to you on it.
I'm confused because it looks like there was a citation issued, then it was canceled, and I'm confused on what happened. There may not be any charges, or maybe it was referred. Honestly, I'm very confused. And like we talked about, it's not always what you can prove. And I know that there's been a lot of information shared. There was dead bodies. We went out. We, asked for an investigation. There was necropsies done. There were 3 dogs.
Were necropsies done on the 2?
I'm not exactly
even in the report.
I'm still looking. I'm not done looking at the report. So it's just a lot going on today. Lots going on today.
Well, let me give Robert a proper introduction. He's been with Metro Felony Animal Unit, was one of the founding detectives on the unit. Been with Metro since 2005, and the Animal Felony Cruelty Unit was formed 10 years ago. He's married. He's had an 8-year-old son, a German Shepherd from the Animal Foundation, and a cat from Heaven Can Wait. I really respect
German
that.
short-haired pointer.
Okay.
Don't tell
him I called him a German Shepherd.
He would get very grumpy. He is very proud of what he believes he is.
Thank you for rescuing.
Yes. Maybe to start with, you can tell everybody what you do and how this unit got created.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of background. Like you said, I hired on with Metro in 2005, but you don't just become a detective overnight. You have to work into that position. So I started out like everybody else as a patrol officer, responding to calls, taking reports. Then from there, I became a field training officer, then became a detective in our financial crimes unit, did a bunch of identity theft. Before I moved over to what's now referred to as our Homicide Sex Crimes Bureau Special Victims Unit. And that is where the Animal Cruelty Unit originated from. And, one of the reasons that unit exists is somebody sitting right here today.
That's right.
The public certainly had an appetite to see changes in how animal cruelty cases were investigated. The DA's office at that time, District Attorney Wilson was running for election, and he got involved with it as well. Former Sheriff Lombardo, now Governor Lombardo, got involved as well. And part of their campaign promises to the public was elect us and we will put this in place. And they kept their campaign promises. And next
Gina,
thing you know, we started it.
Gina was there, I think, visiting with Lombardo on a regular basis, calling him, emailing him, saying, hey, we need this, right?
Showing up at all the campaign events. We were asking.
So that was a great
etc.
achievement. Because before then, how were animal felony crimes investigated, or who did that?
Well,
were they not?
They were handled in a piecemeal effort. Sometimes law enforcement would become involved, but most were handled by your animal control officers that are out there each and every day. And they work incredibly hard to try to rescue animals, support animals. And they oftentimes tried to put amazing cases together. They just don't have the same resources that a standing police officer does, the ability to easily get warrants, to gather evidence, to have a lab. And sometimes you need those additional resources to really handle these cases appropriately. And it was just a need that needed to be met. And we've worked hard to do it.
And you saw an increase in cases being prosecuted because of that, I assume.
Absolutely. The district attorney's office needed a little bit better evidence gathering and a little bit better lab work and somebody that had a little bit more time and experience. Our animal control officers, they're responding to thousands of calls just to handle the basic welfare of animals. They often don't have the independent time to really put cases together. And that's something that law enforcement can give, is a little bit more of a focus because they're not having to go out each and every day and handle those other calls for service.
And I wanted to say, and the difference is that they're not peace officers like you guys are. They don't have the peace officer powers that you guys have to get a warrant. They can do requests for prosecution, and they have done a great job, But in the beginning, you think even before the Cruelty unit, it was, and I want to give a shout out to former Assistant DA Lucinda Cuomo, because she was helping initially because it was, when it first started, it was sort of a, shit show. And they didn't know how to gather up. They didn't have anywhere to put evidence. We found a dog and we found the bullet that he was shot with. And it was like, they didn't have anywhere to, keep that evidence or even gather, track it. They didn't have the training, but she started working with them to do that. And then that's why, as more and more cases were coming, we fought to get the felony cruelty unit done because you guys are trained to do that. And so.
Absolutely. And we're not the inventors of it. Las Vegas Metro will give us a lot of credit. We are one of the foremost law enforcement agencies handling animal cruelty, but we're certainly not the first. Chicago, Miami, some other major cities have had combined units with animal control officers and peace officers, and there's been a lot of success there. There is rarely a brand new idea out there in law enforcement. We're all just kind of copying each other, seeing what works, making improvements where we can. And, we certainly looked out to these other organizations. We reached out to them, we spoke to them and tried to see what worked. No sense in trying to reinvent the wheel every single time.
And how many cases are you guys working on a year?
It varies slightly, but it averages out over the last 10 years to about 120 cases a year.
Okay. And I know, Melanie, you were just sharing some data with us nationwide. How many felony animal cases are coming up?
Well, we can say what Google says, right? They're saying that there are 10 million, that basically an animal every minute is being abused in the United States of America, which could easily...
Google says this? Or?
Yeah, which could easily equal out to 10 million. But it's not just dogs and cats. We're talking about, labs and, hoarding situations and puppy mill situations. But what's interesting, so it says that 85% of people arrested for animal abuse or cruelty have had multiple past arrests, with 70% having prior felonies, and around 70% of people who committed domestic violence were also found to be animal abusers. And I know we've talked about this before, that there's a huge link between domestic violence and animal abuse. If they're going to beat a person, what's going to stop them from beating the dog or the cat or whatever,
Which is why in the original law, it was a D felony for the animal abuse. It was a C felony if it was done in order to threaten, intimidate, or terrorize, such as in a domestic violence situation. And when we first worked on passing Cooney's law, there was a full-page article in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and they interviewed a woman that was actually staying at Shade Tree, and her cat, I believe, was at Noah's Animal House, because a lot of people won't leave a domestic violence situation if they have to leave the animals behind. So we know that there's a lot of links there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the reasons. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry. We had that one. Remember, we did a vigil. The guy shot the dog.
Oh, Puka.
Yes.
Puka, the one that
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
remember that because I think we talked about that. It was the guy that got in a fight with his wife, shot the dog sleeping in her bed, and then left the house and then threw the body. You guys went out.
Did you work
because
on that
our
case?
volunteers found the body, remember, thrown off to the side of the
Over 215 in Cheyenne area.
Yep, that was exactly it. Yeah.
So, going off of what Melanie was talking about, do you guys, does the department understand, hey, if we get the animal abusers before they start abusing humans, we're actually getting ahead of the game? Is there a connection there? Because we see the statistics, and we certainly feel that people that abuse animals are probably going to abuse humans as well.
So I will say this, that there are certainly studies that suggest that. That is one of the reasons the Animal Cruelty Unit existed. It is certainly one of the reasons it was put in place with the Special Victims Unit, which houses our felony animal cruelty, or our felony domestic violence unit. The hope was we would be able to use the coerce and terrorize portion of the law to attempt to stop some of these domestic violence issues before they became worse, because Nevada, sadly, consistently is one of the leading states for domestic violence homicides.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
Yep, we are almost always right at the top.
What do you attribute that to?
There's a
The
lot
wild
of
lifestyle of Las Vegas?
There's a lot of social issues of why certain things happen in Vegas. Studies will say alcohol use, drug use, education, transient community.
So do you think animal abuse is higher in Las Vegas than what we'd see across the country based off?
I think it depends on what you consider animal abuse. So what the unit was initially started as I'm saying, was the domestic violence portion. We thought we were going to have far more impact on domestic violence. We have not. We have almost transitioned to neglect. That is the primary cases that we deal with. We really, of those 120 cases, very few of them are outside of some type of neglect. We are not seeing a high incident of shooting dogs, stabbing dogs, beating dogs for domestic violence issues. One thing that we do see, and we certainly hope to make an impact early on, is some of our children that are hurting family animals. Certainly those are the people that we have a concern for growing up and committing those other crimes, because that has been consistently shown in multiple studies that if you are harming animals as a child, you are likely to harm animals as an adult. You're likely to harm people as an adult. It is certainly a linked statistic. So early intervention in that point with the juvenile criminal justice system is certainly very, very important. What we see far more in this valley is general neglect that leads to injury or death. And that's why some of the statistics you're saying, we don't see a lot of our people that we are arresting are people that haven't been in trouble before. We're not seeing 70% of our people having prior arrests and felonies. A lot of them are
is it that
people
they just
making mistakes.
They don't know better? Yeah, mistakes, or they don't know better, or I mean,
what would you classify Reba's case as? Is that a neglect, or is that how do you see that case?
I think that's far more of a deliberate act on their part. But, one thing that, you all brought up earlier, some things that I've seen change over the last 10 years. There's two major things that I think have changed police work as a whole, but in animal cruelty in particular. One of them is the advent of cheap surveillance footage. That has cleared more cases, not just for animal cruelty, homicide, sexual assaults, and everything else. People have cameras all over their businesses, all over their homes. It helps us get suspects and it helps us see crimes. But animal cruelty in particular is the change in the type of animals that people have as pets. You look at your short-snouted dogs, they don't breathe well, they don't do well in the heat. And what are the most popular dogs anymore? What is the number one most popular dog in America?
Frenchie.
A Frenchie. English bulldogs are up there as well, especially in this valley. People do not understand how susceptible they are to heat. We have people that sometimes are going to jail, not because they necessarily wanted to hurt their animal, but they did commit gross neglect by not understanding the needs of their animal. But they left them outside.
Same as someone who leaves their child in the car when it's hot.
They leave their animal outside for 20, 30, 40 minutes, not understanding that the dog's not necessarily going to come inside, not seek shelter in the right way. And the heat here affects those dogs in such a manner that it results in their death. Is it right? Absolutely not. But is there a distinct difference between somebody that does that and somebody that is killing an animal for either a perverse sexual or a torture? Absolutely. And those are the people that I think you're going to see committing more of your person crimes than somebody that has that neglect issue. And I think that has to be separated out in the discussion.
Or like the hoarding.
Hoarding is very typically people that start out with excellent intentions and become dramatically overwhelmed. Mental health issues are often seen in that. And the people that are committing massive hoarding, again, are not the people that you're normally going to see then committing person crimes.
Do you investigate dog fighting? And if so, how often?
We have never had a dog fighting case.
Why do you think
what
that
about
is?
cockfighting?
Really?
Dog fighting is not traditionally a Nevada problem, particularly in southern Nevada. We do have a much higher incident of cockfighting here. And our unit has handled the largest ones in the state multiple times. The largest one I had was over 700 birds. We certainly are more apt to see that than dogfighting. Dogfighting is far more a southeast United States and some in the Chicago region.
As far as more of an organized way, but maybe there might be amateur dogfighters. Is that possible? That just run under the radar?
It may be. It's just not something that we have ever had reported to us. It's not something that our animal protection officers see. It's not something that we've had. It's not something the Humane Society has come in contact out here. But could something occur? Absolutely.
Well, and I think too, in some of these other states, they have such large properties that are in the woods where they can tie up all the dogs and nobody even knows what's going on. Where here, we don't really have necessarily those types of properties. And if they are, they're very expensive properties, you know?
It's hard to raise a lot of animals on a posted sides lot where everybody can see in your backyard.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm curious, what are some of the most memorable or largest cases that you've worked?
There's a few very memorable cases. The one that's most memorable for the type of animals, the variety, and the situation was certainly one that occurred up near Mount Charleston that involved two ladies that were running a rescue and said no to nothing. And they had everything from rats to a coyote to an owl.
Yeah.
When was
lizards,
this?
That was sad.
snakes.
That was a very,
It was truly shocking.
And the animals were not being well cared for.
No. They did not have the financial ability, the physical ability, the space ability to care for those animals. I mean, it is the only time I have ever seen a coyote running around a house, basically domesticated and friends with a blind deaf dog. They had a kit fox. They had a 12, 14 foot long, 100+ pound Burmese python that we pulled out of there with 4 people. They had dozens of iguanas. I mean, it was hundreds of rats.
Yeah, in like fish tanks. Just
dead animals?
poured.
There were some, most of them were alive. Regrettably, the types of animals they had, many of them aren't able to be domesticated, aren't able to be kept.
Right.
Many of them had to be euthanized. Some of them were able to find homes. And it was, you just don't expect to see that variety of animals.
So that's what stood out about that one, the variety of animals.
The size, the variety. I knew coyotes were athletic. I did not know a coyote could run up the side of the wall, jump up on a beam that goes over your head, run over and run down the wall around you because it did not want to get caught. you just don't realize how truly amazing a coyote is as an animal until you see what it can do from a foot away.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't want to hurt us. It was rather docile. It just had free reign to do as it pleased.
There's
Other
there's
cases?
a fine line between rescue and hoarding.
Right. Any other cases that come to mind?
We had a case where a family had started with a couple of miniature greyhounds, I believe is what they were, and they had begun to breed with each other and continue to breed with each other. And occasionally one would die and it would eat its friends. But there were so many in this home, and these people became so overwhelmed, they didn't know what to do. They moved out of their home, went and got an apartment, and the animals lived in the home. They came by, gave them food, gave them water, but there were over 40 in the home. They had not been outside.
Oh my gosh.
For years.
Oh.
The neighbors finally got the city involved because the stench had become so bad. And we were in there in hazmat suits with animal feces that was above your boot on every surface, pulling animals out of there for hours and documenting it.
What happened to the owners in that case? Do you remember?
They were prosecuted as for animal cruelty. They were charged with, multiple counts for each animal. And like many hoarding cases, the answer isn't necessarily prison. The answer is trying to get these people the mental health that they need to be a positive impact on society. Jail is not always the right answer for people. When you think of the prison system, the job of prison, at least in my mind, and people will certainly disagree with me in the community and in law enforcement, but it should be rehabilitation and it should be to protect the community. Because it costs a lot of money to keep somebody in jail. So you need to have a true reason to put somebody there. You need to have a reason that they are going to be in jail so we can protect society and hopefully rehabilitate them. And we have to look at each case separately to try to determine the best outcome for society and for them. Because everybody that goes to jail gets out of jail pretty much. So we got to make sure when they come out, they're a better person than when they come in.
What was your most heartbreaking case?
It's a little bit weird. I guess heartbreaking isn't really the right term. If you do this job long enough, you have to separate the case from how you feel about it. My job is to go there and gather the facts and the evidence the best that I can and to try to strip my emotion out of it as much as possible. Because I have to make factual decisions in the moment, not necessarily let my feelings dictate what's going to occur. But anytime you go out and you see animals that are in poor conditions, it's sad. There's no doubt about that. No one animal has necessarily more value than another. So any animal that you see suffering, you're going to feel bad for.
You obviously love animals. You have rescues yourself, and they have value to you more than just physical property.
And that is an interesting thing in Nevada law. Animals are both considered property in some regards and a living being in other regards. So it is a very interesting legal line there. I certainly think animals should be treated well. That being said, I also understand there is a difference between an animal and a human on the legal side and protection side and resource-wise.
Were you involved in the Reba investigation? And what are your thoughts on the owner pleading guilty today? And what type of sentence would you be satisfied with?
Well, I was involved. Everybody was involved. So while our animal cruelty unit only has 2 full-time detectives, Metro has 3,000 sets of boots. So anytime more manpower is needed, there is something we can put together to assist. So we have what's called major case protocol. So anytime it's determined that a case rises to a certain level, either because of public demand or the type of case, a major case protocol can be determined by the bosses far above me, usually at the deputy chief or above level. And that means resources from everywhere are used. And we have a lot of wonderful resources on our department. So the Reba case wasn't solved by one detective or one person. It was a group effort by dozens of detectives at Metro to come to that. So while I was involved, I certainly don't want to take any credit for it. I didn't put in the most hours. I didn't put in the most work on it. But my finger was in it a little bit.
And what are your thoughts on him pleading guilty today? And what type of sentence would you be satisfied with? Obviously, the department put a lot of work into this case.
The work put into our case shouldn't necessarily determine what the sentencing should be. I worked a financial crimes case that we put 18 months into, and the person got 18 months in jail. I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison. You can have a murder case where somebody gets murdered and 20 people saw it and there's video, and it doesn't take that same type of manpower, but we certainly still need a good sentence.
Well, maybe not based off how much time the department put into it then, but based on the facts that were uncovered and the crime that was committed. What would you be satisfied with as far as a sentence?
And I've had this conversation with Gina, and so I'll kind of explain my standing on it. I don't make the laws. I don't prosecute the cases, and I don't have a say in that. So I try to stay in my lane in that regard and present the facts. I am happy that the person pled guilty for a couple reasons. One, it gives closure to the community. It gives some justice to Reba. And it shows that we did our investigation properly. What occurs after that in the justice system is really up to the judges, the district attorney, and the lawmakers that make the laws. That's really kind of my best answer for that. If the law changes, and certainly it did with Reba's law, the community came out and said, we want longer sentences. We want stricter penalties. And now those will exist going forward. And I think that's a good thing, because in the most heinous cases, we need to be able to have a more heinous punishment.
And I forgot what I was going to ask. It was in regards to Reba, but go ahead.
What's the biggest difference? Because we've been talking about this. I think there's a misconception with the public. They don't understand the difference between what you guys do and what animal control does. And I know that you mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but what's like the biggest difference between you and animal control? And then when is it that you get involved and animal control kind of passes on a case over to you?
So animal control in many ways acts for us like our standard patrol officer does in many ways. They are our first responder oftentimes. They are the people that the community is connected to, that is the first point of contact for them. They are the first responders that are oftentimes going out and seeing the animal in some type of condition. Now, we meet with them very often. When the unit initially started, we were meeting with them on monthly basis, going over what type of cases we can handle, what they're going to handle, what we have resources for, and how we can help. Obviously, this has been going on for 10 years. We don't have to have meetings quite as often. But the animal control officer is vitally important. They are the first point of contact, oftentimes. Now, sometimes we have calls, and I'll kind of break down how a case goes from start to finish.
Can you use Jazzy as an example?
Well, let him use his example. I think that because
So normally what will occur is one of two things happen. Animal control is going to get the first call for service, or it'll come into our dispatch center either through 311 or 911 based on the circumstance of the call. then patrol officers and animal control officers are going to respond out there. The biggest difference in that initial response is animal control has the ability to actually handle the animal, rescue the animal, get them to veterinary care, and do those type of things. Our standard patrol officer does not have the training or the resources, the ability or the contracts to do that. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get somebody out there. Then they're going to evaluate what actually occurred here. Sometimes it is a simple solution that can be handled out in the field and doesn't need to involve a detective. A simple type case, somebody leaves a dog in a car. This can result in death, but oftentimes it does not. Somebody says, hey, the dog's in the car. They come out there, animal control arrives out on scene, makes contact with the owner. They're cited for leaving the animal in the car, assuming that the animal's well-being is okay. And that would be the end of the call on that portion. Now, animal control may get out there, and our patrol officer may get out there, and we may have a deceased dog in the vehicle. Well, that's going to obviously change the type of crime we have from a simple misdemeanor to a possible felony investigation. So at that point, our patrol officers are going to start out with the basics like they do on every single call. Doesn't matter if it's a homicide, a sexual assault, an animal cruelty call, burglary call, or a robbery call. They begin to gather the information, protect evidence, gather witnesses, start an incident crime report, and contact who they need to respond out to the scene. In this case, it'd be an animal cruelty detective that would respond out there. Be determined, hey, do we need a search warrant to recover evidence? Is this something that can be done on consent? Is this something in public areas that we don't need a search warrant on? Those things would be determined. Then we'd have to start gathering our own evidence. Maybe patrol officers has found our initial person reporting and has them off to the side for us. They've found some other witnesses in the parking lot. We're going to do tape statements with each one of those people. Now, we have a parking lot. What do we oftentimes have in parking lots? Businesses with video. Now it's gathering video from each one of those locations, creating a timeline, interviewing our suspects, seeing what type of prior criminal history they have. And that case is going to end in one of three ways based on these circumstances: a citation, an arrest, or a submittal to the district attorney's office. And everybody's going to ask, well, what's a submittal to the district attorney's office? So that is when we prepare all the evidence that we have gathered, either that day or oftentimes over weeks or months, and we send that to the district attorney's office. And there is a set of screening district attorneys who review every case that occurs in Clark County, minus misdemeanors that happen in city of Las Vegas, Henderson, or North Las Vegas. But every felony in Clark County, they review. Every gross misdemeanor they review, and every misdemeanor in Clark County they review. It's a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to read what you provided to them, and they are going to make a decision based on that, what they believe the proper charge should be, or if there should be no charge whatsoever. That is then sent to a judge for review as well. That judge then makes a determination, yes, I believe probable cause exists, or no, it doesn't, and will issue a warrant for that individual. And then once that warrant is issued, they can get arrested.
I remembered my question about Reba. You said it was escalated to a major case. Is that what you called it?
It did become a major case protocol where we had detectives from multiple different bureaus and details coming together with their expertise to help us solve that case.
Had that happened before with an animal abuse issue? And why do you think Reba's case did get raised to a major case?
Major case protocols aren't something that the department uses regularly. It is something that is used when additional resources are needed to solve a case.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, that's not often needed. Even on our biggest cases, people think of multiple homicides and things. That doesn't become a major case protocol because we have the resources and ability to handle it. The major case protocol is usually put in place when our resources aren't getting the results that we need. A big case where major case protocol was used was the burglaries in Spring Mountain. That if you followed that, I think there was 20 plus
in Chinatown.
Recently. So it's for our cases where we're not getting traction, we're not getting the results we need, and we think it's truly an important case to the public, the community, and the criminal justice system that we get those results.
And you said that's up to the higher ups who decide what case gets escalated. Certainly, I would think media attention comes into play. What are your thoughts?
Media attention can certainly play a role, of course, but many cases that the public never hears about, the upper echelon of the department is certainly aware and making sure the right resources are being advanced and used.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we go out and respond to a case, a brief is prepared and it is sent up through the chain of command, oftentimes to the sheriff as well. And each one of these people are reviewing it and making sure cases are being investigated properly, resources are being used, and what additional resources are needed. Obviously, the direct supervisors within the Bureau, your sergeants, your lieutenant, your captain, have the ability to reach out, get additional resources, and even go to the people above them and say, hey, because of this, I need to escalate this to a major case protocol.
What I know Gina brought up earlier, the case about the two dogs, Canella and Ribbit, that were found deceased by the same owner. That
and there was a third dog as well.
Third one. Do you have any information to share on that? Because there's been a lot of information online. It seems like some of it misinformation. Is that a case you guys are still looking into, or is it closed?
I am not aware of that case. That doesn't mean it's not being investigated by one of our other detectives. It's just not one that I have direct knowledge of. I can certainly get back to you all in the future and let you know, but off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't.
How about the other dog that was recently found dead in a crate, and there was footage from a Ring camera? I was impressed because Metro actually held a press conference when the dog was discovered. This was just a week or 10 days ago.
I think they put out a press release, and then it was all over the news and all the media showed up. The dog that was dumped next to the dumpster, and then
crate.
Yeah. So that is still an open and active investigation. And at this time, that's really the most I can comment on that. We are still working leads and trying to move that case forward.
So you could still use help from the community if anyone's aware of anything.
Absolutely. Even when we have determined who the suspect is, that doesn't mean we don't need every single witness to come forward and provide information. The district attorney, the judges, the jury don't want just part of the story. If anytime somebody has additional information about a case, we want to know it. And it's not just for animal cruelty cases, it's for all types of cases. So if somebody was a witness or has information, even if an arrest has already been made, let us know so we can get that information.
Are there any cases right now specifically that you would like the public's help on?
Certainly, we would like some more witnesses on the case that you just now were discussing. Otherwise, right now, that is our largest active investigation.
Okay.
I think the last time I actually saw you, and it had been a long time, was it Carolyn Luke and Timothy Miller, the big hoarding case that spanned multiple jurisdictions, and you guys were out at you guys were actually at both, but the city was in the city and the county animal control was at the county, and you guys were at it for how many hours and took how many hours to document all those animals? And
I think we were out there for 8 or 9 hours total to document both the hotel room, document the house, recover all the animals with animal control, and try to move that case forward. I don't. There were certainly quite a few.
Was it I think over 200 animals and at least 60?
There were a bunch of guinea pigs. That was
a lot of dogs at the hotel, dead dogs, live dogs.
Now, we only handled a portion of that because the initial animals were found in a car stop outside of our jurisdiction. So a lot of those animals don't figure into our count. We were mostly dealing with a lot of the small dogs.
Right. And there was still a lot of animals that were found in the hotel and at the house. Yeah, that was
Go ahead.
So, Gina and I have had multiple conversations about this. When someone posts a video, so I don't know if you've seen, I know it was Henderson jurisdiction, right? About the guy who was like hitting the dog with the leash. Have you seen that one?
I have not. I just got back from vacation. I was avoiding the news
why you
for a
have the
bit.
sunburn.
So long of the short, the person that posted looked like it was a neighbor, maybe upstairs and over a little bit. And everyone was like, what's the address? What's the address? What's the address? And apparently animal control was called. They went to the property. But everyone was still like, there were people that in the comments were driving around trying to like Google Earth where this property was. And it's like, what are you going to do when you get there? Like, so I think my question, someone did show up and had a conversation with this person. Like, how do situations, because I know the public gets upset. They want to,
be vigilantes.
Be vigilantes
or
when there's situations like these. Like, how do situations like these how can they affect a case? Whether it's before you guys get there, after you guys get there, or after you're gone, and someone goes later and talks to this person. Like, how does that affect things? Because I think people, again, want to take things into their own hands, but they're not understanding that they're not the police. They're not investigators. So it's like...
And if they go and say, like, for instance, take the animal and say, just give me the dog or something. If you guys are in the middle of, say, drafting a warrant to get the dog, to take the dog to the vet and have the dog checked out, if they now take the evidence, doesn't that affect the case? Like, we're really concerned about,
Absolutely. When something's going through the criminal justice system, you have to prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. It is an incredibly high standard, and it should be a high standard. Our criminal justice system is based on the idea that it is more important to let a guilty person go free than an innocent person to be locked up. And even with that belief, the criminal justice system is not perfect. But when the public becomes overly involved and damages evidence that is needed, right there it creates a reasonable doubt that keeps us from being able to prosecute that case. Now, the public is vitally important to law enforcement in general. There are only 3,000 sets of boots for all of Metro. There's 2 million people in the Valley. Obviously, you're going to see things, hear things, be involved in things that we can't be. That being said, when that crime is seen, the process has to be trusted. And I know the process has not always been perfect. No process is, and it always should improve. What occurred 10 years ago and 20 years ago, we've worked hard to improve it, and we'll continue to work hard to improve it. But that process has to be trusted. When somebody comes forward on the internet, we need to get vet bills for this animal that was abused, and nobody's contacted animal control, nobody's contacted law enforcement, and this event happened days, weeks, or months prior, the evidence just doesn't exist anymore, and it makes moving forward with a prosecution very, very difficult.
You brought up improvements. Since you've been a detective with this unit since its inception, have you seen a shift in focus on animal abuse issues in the department itself, as far as how much attention is played to them, how much significance is given to them?
100%. When the unit started, we didn't even have a call sign to be able to get on the radio initially. It started, it was
in a closet.
It was a piecemeal effort trying to figure out exactly what we were going to do. That's one of the reasons I took the position. Metro has been around since 1973. Before that, it was, the Clark County Sheriffs and Las Vegas City Police. And in 1973, it combined. We're an old department. Well, by the grand scheme of things, we're a young department, but we've grown a lot. And we're one of the largest departments in the country. And what that means is there's not a lot of opportunity to start something from scratch. And this was an opportunity to start something from scratch. Write the policy, write the procedures, do the research, figure out what works and what doesn't. And that's rare in a place like Metro. So it was a fun challenge, but it was a challenge because we had to also change the mindset of our patrol officers in the field, our supervisors, our dispatchers receiving the call, because the traditional way we handled these calls was, hold on, let me transfer you to animal control.
Mm-hmm.
So it certainly took a lot of training on our part, going out, making sure our officers know that the unit exists, that we can come out, that we can respond, that we will handle these cases, to today where it is very well known by our officers and supervisors in the field that the unit exists, the type of cases that are handled, the importance to the department, the importance to the public, the importance to the media, and the need to get out there, document the scenes well, use the resources that we have, such as our crime scene analysts and our labs, to get the results we need. It's certainly been a dramatic shift. And it's not that our officers were uninterested. Many of them are pet owners and lovers of pets, just like your normal citizens out there. We just weren't trained that was our job function.
I've seen the shift from the outside, so I was very curious what your perspective was.
And I didn't know the difference. So I thought you and Sandy were wonderful. You know what I mean? Like, no, because you had to start somewhere. And so it's funny you say that because, we thought it was fantastic. And there were a lot of cases, many more than anyone anticipated. Even when we passed the law, it was like, I think they said maybe 4 or 10 or something. And you guys had way more than that.
We went out and found cases. In the beginning, because our patrol officers didn't necessarily know to call us. Not all the animal control officers knew to call us. It took going to meetings, meeting with their chiefs, meeting with each of their officers over and over and over. Every single person in animal control had our cell phone numbers. We got a lot of phone calls. How would you handle this? What are your thoughts on this? Is this something that you all would take? We created forms for them to send things over to us that didn't exist before. Input processes. It's, anytime you start something from scratch, there's going to be growing pains.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting to a place where the cooperation is very good. Our officers know that we're out there and responding. And, you see that out there with some of our more high-profile cases. Even the case 2 weeks ago with the dog in the crate in the dumpster. Our lieutenant was out there giving a press release. The media was out there. We had dozens of detectives out there because we brought out everybody that was working that morning in our special victims unit from missing persons, from animal cruelty, from abuse and neglect, some of our family justice officers, some of our patrol detectives from different area commands. And we knocked on every door in that area to try to get video. And who we couldn't reach, we left cards. We took down their addresses so we could follow up at those homes. Getting video from schools and other things. Certainly the priority has been get as much evidence and as much information as quickly as possible and work these cases with a vigor. And, that is a mind shift from the department and I think the public as well.
Yeah. I think I do want to real quick talk about, and it's because it was done quietly because I've learned my lesson on sharing videos. People just go too crazy these days. The vitriol, I don't need it. I value the relationship that I have with Metro now that I can just reach out. And the security guard that was, chasing the dog and then punched the dog. And people were angry. It was on the Ring video and it was sent to me. And all I did was take a screenshot, reach out to you guys. And I know that immediately there was, resources put towards finding that person. And that person was found. I believe that person was arrested. I requested that the dog be taken to a vet and checked out to make sure that there wasn't residual injuries, And are you allowed to talk about that? Or I know we talked a little bit, but...
I'm certainly aware of the case. Mm-hmm. And just like I mentioned earlier, we are finders of evidence and presenters of evidence. We are not the ones that determine charges. Nevada revised statute is very clear that the sole responsibility of the district attorney's office, and their sole ability is they get to pick what they want to prosecute and what they are going to charge. The police department has no say in it whatsoever. We give, the best way to put it is suggestions.
Can you repeat that for everybody listening? Because I think, again, there's a big misconception. Animal control didn't do anything to this person. And like, people are not understanding.
Or even Metro.
There's a process to all of this. And to your point, like, no one's going to remove an animal off of animal control, let's just say, is not going to remove an animal off of somebody's property unless they deem it like where the dog's basically dying or needs urgent medical care. They're not going to remove this dog right away off of someone's property, and everyone's up in arms. And
well, everybody, as we spoke about earlier a little bit, animals are seen both as living beings and as property. And the Constitution is very clear on when you can take property away from somebody under the Fourth Amendment. So we can't just willy-nilly go in and take an animal because somebody doesn't think they're being treated properly. We have to have enough evidence that that animal isn't being treated well, that we can get a district attorney and a judge to agree to give me a search warrant to go and remove it, except for very specific situations that are defined in statute, which allows an animal control officer, if an animal appears to be in dire need of medical care, to go in and remove that animal if the animal is accessible and in the curtilage like a backyard or something of a home. So otherwise, there are steps that have to be taken, both legally for prosecution as well as people's constitutional rights. But to kind of answer your question, repeat what you were asking me to. Law enforcement, we find the facts, we present the facts. We make, the best way to put it is suggestions on what we believe the proper charge should be. We send that to the screening district attorney, who may agree with us and say, this is the charge I'm going to use. They may add additional charges. You may believe the person should be charged with 8 crimes. They may say, no, I think they should be charged with 2. Then if they agree that a charge should be done, gets sent to that judge, who may agree or may not agree. Then, assuming it is moving forward with prosecution, it goes to a district attorney that's actually prosecuting that case. And that district attorney then gets to determine, do I agree with this charge? Do I think it should be up? Do I think it should be changed? Do I think it should be amended? Because they're the ones that have to present that evidence in front of the judge and the jury. And then at that point, they're making that final decision on what they're presenting. The best that I'm ever really doing is making a suggestion. Mm-hmm. Now, do the district attorneys occasionally ask our opinion? Yes, but there's way too many cases, not necessarily animal cruelty, but across the board, for there to be a discussion on every single case.
When our listeners see animal abuse happening in real time, who do you recommend they call? They see a dog being hit by a bat. They've seen a dog being drugged behind a truck. A dog being hit by a bat.
Oh, yeah.
Baseball bat, not an animal bat. Who did they call? Because earlier you mentioned animal control would be first on scene, but to me, in an instance like that, it seemed like a police officer should show up.
It's certainly situational. If it is a felony in progress, such as somebody actively injuring the animal right there, particularly if a weapon is involved, 911 is the proper avenue. It is a felony in progress. They need to respond. They need to protect that animal. And they need to begin gathering the evidence needed to make a case go forward. In other cases, hey, I have a dog that has been outside in a backyard for 8 hours and it's hot outside and he looks like he's panting. That is an animal control call where they're going to be able to respond and determine, is it a too hot a day? Is there not water? Is there not proper shelter? And handle that case through their jurisdiction.
Or an animal in a hot car.
An animal in a hot car can be a somewhat varied situation, right? Because we all know that an animal in a car, depending on the temperature outside, it gets very hot very quickly. In Vegas in particular, nobody's ever sat in a car here in the summer and gone, woo, it's cool. We all know it's hot. We know that is a life and death situation. And we also know that animal control doesn't have as many resources as law enforcement. Sometimes we can get there before them and save that animal. So it's going to be situational. If it's 40 degrees outside in winter and the dog's there, probably not an emergency. It's 110 degrees outside in the summer. That's more of an emergency.
But even like the situation with Jazzy, I think when they called, they asked her, is the dog in distress? And she said, no, but she's panning, and I don't think
it's hard to make that
she
determination.
knew the difference. And that was very hard because in a matter of minutes, it was too late, but then we find out later that the dog's been out there for,
20 hours.
Yeah, 20 hours. And it wasn't just a couple hours, but it is hard. So, and I know 311, forget about it. You'll be on hold forever.
Well, I will say 311 call times have dramatically improved.
Oh, they have?
That was
okay.
that was a focus of Sheriff McMahill. The call center was having some staffing issues. He was very upfront about that. He was vocal about that. There were multiple news stories. He brought in retired dispatchers. He brought in injured officers. He brought in people from other sections that could help answer those calls and get that wait time down until he could hire more people and improve staffing. And can I guarantee you're going to get the call answered in seconds? No, but the wait times have dropped down dramatically.
Good.
And you will see a significant difference calling 311 now.
Okay.
Not as a detective, but based off your experience as a detective, let's say you were a city council person or a state legislator. What laws would you like to see changed or created that you think would help protect animals better and make officers' jobs more effective?
I think one of the smartest things that could be done is having our animal control officers be able to become peace officer trained and take some of that responsibility over. They are day in and day out the ones that are dealing with animals. They have the additional training in how to deal with animals. They have the contracts for medical care. They have the shelters. I think the best process would truly be to allow them to hire people as peace officers that just want to handle animal cruelty investigations and calls. That's going to allow, I think, more stability because there won't be the same sometimes loss of manpower or changes in responsibility and knowledge that we sometimes see at Metro. Somebody that takes on that job at animal control is thinking this is going to be a 20-year position for me. And you're going to get far more knowledge and ability long-term than necessarily you will with our animal cruelty unit, where sometimes that's seen as a stepping stone to other places, either a promotion or a different investigative detail. And I think that would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
I second that. And
I
that's
think
something
that's a great
that we've
idea.
had a lot of discussions about. And what, again, you guys are peace officers and there's different categories of peace officers. And I know some people would be very opposed, which concerns me because I don't think every animal control officer should be a peace officer. But I do think that they should have them, peace officer positions and maybe have limited powers, even like Secretary of State's office that does investigations or the Farm Bureau, that there's certain positions in the state that have limited peace officer powers that can go do the job that needs to be done to investigate, have the investigatory powers to do that job. So I fully second that.
We need to wrap everything up, but is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I just want to thank our listeners out there for being the eyes and ears of the community, both for animal cruelty cases and the other cases that we investigate. And the big thing I want to remind people is disposing of animals. That is something that we see a lot in this valley. Cremation is expensive. I understand that. And legally, you can dispose of an animal in the trash.
I thought that was illegal.
No,
It is legal.
I was pulling all of it because when you did that story, I was not accurate.
Yes. Disposal of an animal in the trash is purely legal. You're supposed to put it in 2 trash bags and put it in a trash can. That is one thing that people don't always realize in our investigations. We have to, just because a dog is in the trash or a cat is in the trash, doesn't mean the animal died by abuse or neglect. Sometimes animals just get sick and pass away. Sometimes unknown to them, sometimes because veterinary care is expensive. Sometimes for numerous reasons. It doesn't mean there was a crime there. So that's the first thing when we have an animal in a trash can is, how did the animal die? That's why the necropsy is important.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure if you're disposing of that animal, do it properly. Put it in 2 bags, put it in the trash can, perhaps label it so we know where it came from in case somebody finds it. You don't need to hide it. You can use your personal trash can because when things end up in dumpsters, people believe you're trying to hide things. So that would be kind of my little 2-bit thing. We want to make sure the cases we are investigating are true cruelty cases because like anywhere else, we do have limited resources. We want to focus on the most important cases, not cases where an animal passed away for a non-abusive issue and was just disposed of.
But obviously the case with the dog found recently next to the dumpster, you guys are still investigating that one. So I'm assuming you saw something there that led you to believe this wasn't just a dog that had passed away from natural causes.
So anytime we have an animal pass away in a situation like that and we don't know who that animal belongs to or what the cause and manner of the death is, we have to investigate it like it's a crime until we know otherwise. So that's why we rely on our veterinarian partners who are completing the necropsy to let us know what that cause and manner of death is because we have to have that to move forward and determine do we have a crime or not. And until we know, we have to treat it like a crime because if we wait days, weeks, or months to get that answer from our veterinarian professional, well, at that point, the evidence is gone. So you have to treat it like a crime until you know different.
And have you gotten the necropsy back on that one?
That one, I believe, is still pending the final report.
And to your point, dumping your animals on East Lake Mead Boulevard on the way to the lake is not okay. We know that
That's illegal.
There's some dumping grounds out there. It's terrible. That's illegal disposal of
It is illegal. It is illegal because it is a health hazard. Essentially, it falls under littering and health hazards because there is fear of disease that can come from that. And it's certainly something we would not recommend to anybody, both because the community doesn't need to see it and it creates a lot of questions about what occurred as well.
Sure.
Or I believe you could take the body to the shelter as well. Yeah,
they do. And they even do, I think, real cheap.
Yeah, euthanasia and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Well,
but that was a good point. Thanks for bringing that up because it is
Thank
a
you.
big problem.
Thank you so much for coming in. This was a fascinating interview. I learned a lot, and I hope our listeners did. So we realize it's difficult to get someone from the department to get clearance to come out and speak freely on a podcast, and so we greatly appreciate you and the department allowing it.
Well, I appreciate you all hosting this and giving us the opportunity to speak to the public and what each and every one of you are doing day in and day out to protect the animals in the community.
Thank you for all of your work. And I'm sad to say that you will probably be retiring soon, huh?
January 14th. So, looks like it will probably be my last day.
So we wish you well. And it's been 20 years. I just celebrated 20 years with Nevada Voters for Animals. So it's been a pleasure. And thank you for all of the work that you've done. And yes, thank you to the brass at Metro for allowing this for you to come on the show. Thank you.